G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Some of you might know this, that I am currently an English teacher, but before this iteration of myself, I'm actually a boilermaker by trade. So majority of my working life I've been involved in construction or fabrication of some sort. I started my apprenticeship very young when I was 16. Actually, funny enough, under a German guy. He was a real tough nut old guy, treated me like shit for the whole 5 years I was with him, but he did teach me a lot. So I just wanted to have a look at the difference between building a house in Germany as opposed to building a house in Australia. Now, I know that different regions have different building permits and different styles, different approaches, all that sort of stuff. Exactly the same in Australia. You know, warmer climates, you know, the houses are different compared to Tasmania, where, you know, they have lots of rain and it's colder. So it'd just be interesting to have a look at the differences. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. It's not going to be a long video. I'm going to do this in parts. So if you like this one, make sure you keep watching the other parts. So let's get started with the house in Germany.
Every house needs a stable subsurface. The existing soil is removed to a depth of 50 centimeters to make room for the stable filling material, construction sand, on which the base plate will stand. The surveyors mark the dimensions of the base plate. To do this, determine the side edges and mark them with nails. A total of 8 points, which will later be connected with cords. The crossing areas of the cords are the corner points of the base plate.
Okay, so we don't call it a base plate, we just call it a slab. But that process is exactly the same. Okay, you set up the corners of whatever you're building, that slab's got to match that one. Okay, let's keep going.
This will completely fill the excavation pit again. It is important to compact with the vibrating machine so that the foundation does not give in later.
Okay, so we use that exact same machine when we're compressing dirt or something. We call it a whacker packer. So looking at the name, I would say that's a German machine. But yeah, we use the name whacker and then packer, whacker packer.
The subsoil is ready and construction can begin. All Braille houses are proprietary developments of the Braille Company. Designed by Mario Brandenburg, the managing director. Foundation of the house is being built today at the Bloodhouse construction site.
Okay, so the first thing I notice is that there's no footings. Okay, so in Australia, the first thing that is done is a footing, what's called a footing. So all your supporting walls will have a, depending on where you are, depending on the council regulation, up probably 900 mil, so nearly a metre thick or deep, and then I think it's 250 wide. So it will actually be like a footing that goes all the way through underneath this first, and then after that dries, then this is done over the top. We don't tend to do like the whacker packer, but I can see why they're doing it, because they haven't got a footing, so they're just laying the slab straight over the top. But we can see the plumbing's already in, so that would have been done earlier, so the plumbings are all ready to go, so it all comes up into the right part of the slab. And also I can see there that they've got a membrane, exactly the same in Australia, but under the concrete, under the conch will go some sort of membrane. So yeah, pretty similar so far, except that the footing, which is quite surprising, because I would have thought in a country that does have, you know, not high rainfall, but more rainfall than Australia, that you would have some sort of footing underneath the slab.
The floor plate. The strip foundations on which the load-bearing walls rest and the empty pipes for electricity and water pipes have already been installed. It continues with a bubble wrap. Then the formwork comes. The formwork defines the dimensions of the floor slab. The 8 measurement points, the nails, are the default. The formwork is placed exactly to the string. Precise work is extremely important here, so that the edges run exactly straight and the base plate gets the right size. Now the rebars are coming.
So yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, so the slab is important. The slab dimension is the basis of the building, and if you have a problem with your slab, everything else is out. So just anytime you have like a tradesman that does something like that, if they make a mistake, that reverberates all the way through. That affects the bricklayers, it affects the carpenters, it affects if your walls aren't square, it affects your installation of kitchens, doors, the whole lot. So the slab is the most important part, because that gets everything square straight away. And then if this is square, everything else is easy.
And so that nothing shifts when pouring concrete, strap everything nice and tight. The concrete can flow. For the approximately 10 by 10 meters large floor slab, a total of 25 cubic meters, approximately 60 tons of concrete are placed in the formwork.
So that's what, 250 mil thick, so 250 mil thick. Yeah, that's about the same in Australia, same.
It is important to evenly distribute and prevent air pockets. Therefore, poke again and again with the scraper.
We have like a vibrating machine, which is like a noodle. Like we do exactly the same thing. We put our Rio up on top hats, so there's a gap of maybe that much between the Rio. So the Rio's right in the middle of the conch.
Done. Now the concrete has to be compacted.
Alright, so they're doing the same thing here. So they're screeding and compacting and vibrating at the same time. And you'll see where they're doing it. You can see the bubbles coming up through the concrete. So yeah, it's exactly the same principle. You've got to get the air out of the concrete so that it's solid. But yeah, that machine, whatever that is, that would do exactly that. I actually like that because that's screeding at the same time. So all concrete mixes, no matter what building you're doing, okay, it can be different. Okay, you can have retardants put into them, or sleepers. We call them sleepers. So if you're in a really hot place, the concrete can go off really quickly. So they put in these additives to make sure that it stays wet. A lot of times in really hot places, like in the middle of Australia, we'll actually put a membrane underneath and fill like a couple of inches of water, just so that the water sucks up the concrete and it gives you more time to work the concrete.
The surface vibrator conducts high-frequency vibrations in the concrete. This increases the flowability of the fresh concrete. Air pockets rise to the surface and can leave. This is the way to give the concrete its perfect, dense consistency. Smooth with the peel-off surface. Done.
Okay, so same thing in Australia. That guy over there has got what we call a ball float. Okay, ours are longer, so you can do the whole slab in one go. So, you know, they might be 20 metres long, so you can run it all the way across and then pull it all the way back. Just helps get everything level. But from what I've seen so far, that's pretty much exactly the same as how it's done in Australia, except for the fact that there's not a footing, which is quite surprising. So again, this will be a geology thing, depending on how dense the soil is, how close you are to rock, to the, what do they call that, the rock bottom and rock layer. So yeah, and looking at the sizes of the houses, and I would imagine that they're all going to be masonry houses. They're going to be pretty heavy, and just having it just floating on the soil like that is quite interesting. But like I said, these people know what they're doing. So yeah. So I would imagine that this would be left for a couple of days, probably 5 days or a week, just to really cure before anything else would happen to the building.
Now the base plate has to harden.
Okay, so we'll just change over and have a look at an Australian one doing the same thing basically, and let's see if there's any differences.
After the foundations are poured, we can start work on the underslab plumbing.
Okay, so you can see here that this is the footing. Okay, so the footing goes around the perimeter of the slab. You can see that they've got the Rio sticking up here. So that's the first thing that's poured, and you can see how deep it is. Like, I think it's 900 mil is the regulation. So that will go 900 mil into the ground first, and then the slab will actually go over the top of that and it will be attached to the footing.
During this process, the sewer and stormwater lines are connected to the approved points of discharge. These separate lines are installed in and around the building to pick up sinks, bathroom vanities, toilets, downpipes and other fixtures. Prior to backfilling of the trenches, the plumbing is inspected and approved by the local council plumbing inspectors. Once approval is granted, we are ready to start work on the house slab.
So I would imagine that would be exactly the same in Germany. You'd have to get the whole building process approved. Okay, so you'd have an engineer come out, make sure everything's done to specifications. Exactly the same in Germany, I would imagine.
Compactable fill is delivered to site. With this, we start shaping the slab pad with an array of thickenings and edge beams. The perimeter of the slab is boxed in accordance with the surveyor's marks and architectural drawings. Reinforcing steel is placed.
Okay, so you can see there, if we just go back a second, so they're filling in with dirt here. So that would be compacted, but it wouldn't be compacted the way that I saw that was happening in Germany. But you can already see that the footing is already a metre deep, and then we're going to put on top of that, we're going to put on the 200, 250, 300 on the edges, so 300 of conch. Same thing, putting in the reinforcements. So the slab in Australia acts more like a cap, so the cap. Now these guys are using dirt to fill in, but you can actually buy like a polystyrene block, which a lot of companies use. It's called like a floating floor, and so you put in a big block like this instead of the dirt, and then as you fill up the concrete, the block compresses and goes like concrete again, so you could end up physically with like 400 mil of concrete. They use that in new suburbs where the soil is not exactly level or hasn't compacted properly. So they might have leveled off a couple of 100 acres, and then the soil will be put up 4 or 5 meters, and then over time it will slowly go down to ground level. So, but to save time, you can actually start building the house on top, and it will actually float down with the soil as the soil comes back down to ground level.
Steel is placed and tied in large sheets of mesh in a continuous array to create a single rigid structure. Once the slab has been inspected and approved by our engineers.
Okay, so you can see the top hats here. Okay, so the top top hats just hold the reinforcing up. I think they're 80 mil, something like that, just so the concrete can go underneath. But again, same thing, a membrane underneath. Okay, it just means that the concrete is contained, it's not touching the soil. You can lose a lot of the moisture out of the concrete into the soil, and if you lose too much water, okay, it won't set properly, it won't cure properly.
We are ready to pour concrete. Once again, a boom pump is used to pump the concrete from the concrete trucks to the slab area. During the pour, the concrete is vibrated to remove any air pockets. A laser level is used to obtain a consistent and accurate finished height. The concrete is screeded and worked to produce a smooth, flat surface. The boxing is stripped, and after some finishing touches, the slab is complete.
So as you can see behind me here,
Okay, so you see that some of the concrete looks rough and some of it's being finished. So it just depends on what's happening. So everyone, when you start building a house, has a plan, and you have every single plan for every single job that needs to happen in there. So if it's going like this, the sunken part there, there's going to be a bathroom. So that can be rough. It's going to be tiled over. Main floor areas that will be tiled will be smoothed off. But yeah, anywhere that doesn't need to be done, they just won't do it.
slab has now been poured, and that concludes the base stage of the construction process. This is always an exciting time for both us and our clients, because you really start to get a feel for the rooms and how the house will flow once completed. At least.
Alright, okay, so that's the first video. So again, exactly the same thing. So that will cure over 5 days, and nothing will happen on site until that is ready. Same thing, very important to have all your dimensions right, particularly in a slab like this, which has got different levels. So that's got a sunken garage. I can tell that's in my home state of Queensland. I can tell by the buildings, and I can also hear the birds in the background. I can tell by the bin out the front. So this is in Brisbane, which is my hometown. But anyway, hope you enjoy the video, and like and subscribe, and look forward to part 2. See you then.